Naman, it's 12:01.
Yeah, you all can start.
We're live? Hello, Colonel Sekhar. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. Hello. As bright as ever is Lina Ashar. I was just worried whether the kangaroo will jump onto me or.
So, for those who are meeting Colonel Sekhar for the first time, if you want to stir up a hornet's nest, as they say, please invite him to speak at your conference or wherever you want to stir up that hornet's nest. Colonel Sekhar, you know, one thing I always look forward to are your sessions at a conference, because if nothing else, it's always something that provokes thought. I don't know when, if you remember when you spoke about how India's birth rate is declining, and that actually got me to think about the micro school. That instead of putting up these massive institutions or massive preschools all over the place, we really need to think how we're approaching education. So you've always provoked thought for me, which is fantastic. And when it came to this topic of contrarian leadership, you were the first one that popped into my head. So welcome. I'm looking forward to this conversation with you. I'd love the audience to get to know you a little bit. So if you could just share your journey, a little bit about how your journey's kind of shaped your approach to leadership, specifically this thought-provoking contrarian style of leadership that you sort of seem to have.
Right. Thank you for inviting me, Lina Ashar, and I am talking to a no mean contrarian herself, coming to kangaroo cage, billing all, and just leaving all of them one fine day meditation et al. And coming down to start something completely online. So first of all, congratulations on what you are doing and the journey you are up to. I am sure that contrarian approach will succeed. Beyond anything else, as we talk, the term contrarian gives rise to a lot of stuff. I'm a cricket fanatic. Just now, India is 344 for 3 with a contrarian like Rishabh Pant. God knows what he's going to do next. So that makes life interesting and something to look forward to. Now, my journey was very interesting in that I was born in Kerala. My father was a police officer from Kerala. In his first 24 years, he had only 26 transfers. So you can understand what kind of person he was. I did my schooling, college, all in Christian Jesuit missionary schools. Then joined the army in 87. My first 1 year in the academy was an unmitigated disaster. I came in from a situation where I was a reader, I was somebody who was talking. The physical fitness part initially was quite a challenge, especially as a swimmer. A stone sunk slower, I sunk faster. Life was really complicated. But once I became an officer, my first posting was in Ladakh, 8 days on a horseback, you can think of. So then, that was the moment I realized, hey, this is not a bad place to be in. I enjoyed leading people. I enjoyed leading men, created a new post right there in the middle of what you can call absolute desert. After the first 2 or 3 days, when you watched the snow fall, at night, you could hear the howling of dogs, nothing else. 35, 36 days completely out of connection. And then went to Sri Lanka, came around. So once I got into the groove of being in the army, I had some excellent leaders who said, speak your mind. Unlike what the real perception is that outside in the army, you cannot question. My contrarian view is in the army, you can question a lot more. Here, the civilians do not like to be questioned. So the journey moved on. I went to a Sainik school, to a military school, Kendriya Vidyalayas, army schools, part of category A establishments. Sometime in 2006, 2005, that was the moment I realized that education, being with schools, running schools is more my calling. I got my promotion to my next rank. I declined my promotion, left, and became a civilian in the best way possible with a kurta pajama. So I've been here now for the last 16 years. It's been a fun journey, and now I am here.
So would you say that moment in 2000, when Einstein got the compass, that was his turning point? We tell children. Would you define that as your turning point?
My turning point was when I was in the military school. Initially, we had about 60 students running away, all messed up. So when the turnaround started, sometime in between those 20 months, we have a system called a family meeting. The daughters, me, my wife, all of us sit together. That was the moment everyone said, Dad, you are comfortable in a school environment. That is your calling. And around that time, I still remember sitting in the huge heritage building of the principal. That was the moment, yeah, that bulb kind of struck. And now came out and just moved.
You just said that that's when you figured out that that was your calling. Do you think there's more things we could do as parents and educators to have kids kind of figure out their calling early on?
Any day, any moment. Quite clearly, to put it very bluntly, most of us, the more educated we are dumber as parents.
Your voice is gone, Colonel Sekhar.
Passionate about, we have whatever we have in our hands, and we go with the classic herd mentality. The Indian parent is a better sheep than the best of sheep. There is no doubt about it. Can we give our children the freedom to think? I'm not saying don't become a doctor or an engineer, but look at your best three choices and allow him and her to take it. But there is also a challenge, Lina, here. Are you able to hear me better?
Yeah, a little bit. Just
Is
speak a
there
little
something
slower, I
of a
think.
problem?
Yeah, just speak a little slower, I think.
Yeah, I will be much slower. Yeah, I will be slower. The key problem here is there is a huge mafia, the education ecosystem, which prevents us, all of us, from thinking straight. I became a victim of it. My wife kind of forced our elder daughter to do engineering. She dropped out after 4 years, now safely working as a journalist, happy in Phoenix. Even some of us who consider ourselves more aware and educated and contrarian go for the conventional thing and learn it the very hard way. So the challenge here is from the government, from the ecosystem, from all of us, are we willing to tell our child getting 98.95 is much less important than understanding what the world will be in the next 50 years?
You know, what you just said just reminded me of something very interesting. In the building that I stay in, the days that I had kangaroo kids, there was a child who was put in kangaroo kids from the building. And then I met the parent in the lift and I asked him, why did you pull your kid out of kangaroo kids? And he said to me, because the child is already starting to question me a lot. How will I control this child when the child gets older if the child is questioning me right now? So one of the things that I'm trying to, I think, influence parents and educators is that compliance and structure doesn't encourage critical thinking. And, we need kids to be able to question authority, whether that's school leadership or it's parent leadership.
Absolutely. We always have a saying, once the first bullet is fired, the best of your plans go into smoke. The armed forces has now realized that you require a certain structure, certain system. But if you want people to think creatively, being over policed and over compliant rarely helps. One. Second, I've always said our schools are tougher than the army to change. Imagine if the school bell is at 8:10. Who to you it becomes 8:12. And I always have this story. Teachers, the school is closing at 2:40. At about 2:39, somebody will hold a bag like this. I call this the Kamandalu posture. You hold a bag in the form of a Kamandalu, we want to go. The biggest challenge is we like to be compliant, not questioning. We consider discipline to be compliance, discipline of yourself and to be able to question. Believe me, as an Army Educational Corps officer, non-operational, completely into education, all my bosses and leaders have allowed me to question them. I'll remind you of something which has been in my mind right through. A very senior brigadier, Brigadier Mukherjee, wonderful man. He had the best of army education. Senior leader, man who knew what operations was. I was the operations officer for a short period. The other officers had gone on leave. He wanted a particular thing to be done, the placing of a gun. I said, sir, it may not be suitable. He told me again. I said, sir, it may not be suitable. Third time when he said it, I said, sir, it's not suitable. Then he said, what do you know about firing operations, etc.? Still, I stood my ground. I said, sir, you go and visit the post. If you believe it's working, please do it. He went up the post. 53-year-old man walked 20-25 kilometers, sweat dripping. He saw me at 50, 60 feet. Sekhar, I am wrong. You are right. My apologies. Now, when you are taught such things, it's a lot easier, Lina, to question people. And my father, as a police officer, refused to listen to ministers when they asked him to do a few things. And they have come home for our wedding and events and told my father, sir, your beatings we have not forgotten, yet they respected him. So what I am trying to say is, This total compliance, no questioning system, whether it is the government of India or state governments, is taking us to a place where we are going to be badly threatened because we will have no ideas, nothing to think. We will go with the flow in a world where climate is changing, AI is taking over. I mean, we are all not going to see the 22nd century. Our children will. Damn it, what are you going to train them for? To sit at the same place? Not to play? Keep repeating what we are telling him rote method? Aren't we abusing ourselves? Because this is going to be a huge challenge if you do not allow our children. The term control has to be replaced by the term mentoring. The students are mentored by the teachers are mentored by the principal, and the board mentors the principal. And at the end of the day, the principal has to run the school thinking next 50 years after he leaves my school, will he be job ready, life ready, family ready, and will he take care of his parents too? Otherwise, we will all be looking for the best old age homes in town.
You know, you just said that the children are mentored by the teachers should be mentored by the principal, and the principal should be mentored by the board. How do you think we could encourage the boards to become disruptive in how they see education? I think till they see that education and standardized testing and learning has to change, that mentoring becomes again board compliant, because we're still, the boards are still saying this is our standardized test. The principals are still bowing down to that standardized test. And so that sort of does not allow for that rebellion and disruptive leadership that we need in schools if we continue to be mentored by the board. In fact, I think we need to encourage the boards to adopt a rebellious and disruptive leadership in themselves.
Yeah. Firstly, I will differentiate between the CBSE, CISC, and our own trust boards.
Okay.
Look at them as three different things. Firstly,
Mm-hmm.
do our managing trustees, owners, like the principals to question them? No. The first place is there. Can we have the school boards with people, at least one or two independent directors who are mandated to check and challenge what is happening? Issue number one. Two, I have paid the money, so I have the authority to take decisions. How do you turn it around? How do you get the teacher to understand that money is important? We have to be in a place where the balance sheet has to be on the blacker side. Three, how do we explain to your immediate superiors, the people who have paid the money, that overnight you are not going to be off the red? There will be a gestation period. Four, till grade 8, nobody is questioning you, Lina. You can have different books. Nobody is stopping you. Why are we as principals, school leaders, not willing to experiment? The challenge lies is because the majority of us like to not to be questioned. We do not want to use our brains. We want to stay where. Why should we question ourselves? The point is, you start questioning, your staff starts questioning, your students start questioning. In all of this, you are exercising your brain and giving yourself uncomfortable nights. Damn it, I want to sleep well. So we look at the short term, not the long term. Firstly, my question to you is NEP 2020, despite all of it, relevant in the AI age? Are we questioning the existing NEP enough? Are we going by the standard compliance structures? So CBSE will have X. ICSE will have X plus 1 or X minus 1. till grade 8, nobody has told you to have this many examinations. And in the midst of all of this, why do we as principals not conduct, even if you want exams, when the students want it? Why do we not conduct our annual exams when the students are ready? Our challenge, our problem consistently is we are very comfortable in this comfort zone. When I went to conferences and said that the monthly timetable will be done by the students, there was a mass rebellion then itself.
Wow.
My definition of a good school is, can the grade 3 student knock at the principal's office, walk in and tell him, Principal sir, yesterday what you spoke in the assembly was nonsense, with due apologies to you. It can happen provided the children feel trusted. And when you go in there, I won't get a blowback.
So I love that. So I love the timetable by students. I love the open principals open door policy, where kids can come in and so can you give me the top things we could do as principals, as leaders of educational institutions, where kids are not only encouraged to question the status quo, but completely accepted and embraced if they do so?
Firstly, simple. I'll put it 1, 2, 3, 4. The principal has to engage the senior classes. He or she goes into a class and tells the students, if all 30 of you do not ask questions, your games will be cancelled. You see the speed with which they'll ask you questions. 2, have your open assembly. In your assembly, 20 students must ask questions. Those classes which ask maximum questions will be given an extra games period. Those students which ask the grades, the sections which ask more questions will be given an extra games period. Those students who ask questions the right way will be excused some of the examination. Watch what happens. And can the principal in a public assembly say, I am sorry, I apologize? Start those things. And in staff meetings, allow yourself to be questioned. Allow yourself to change your decision based on inputs from the teachers. Once you do that, do the basics right. This is one part. Equally, the other challenge we all face, Lina, is India is a trust deficit country. We don't trust each other. We have a challenge at that. And that's the big difference for a contrarian, the challenge I faced when I came into my civilian space. Here, Lina, what you are going to ask, what you are going to question me, I trust you. Maybe a couple of times you will embarrass me. So be it. I trust her enough to ensure that this becomes a good, interesting, invaluable discussion. If I tell you, that's the first part. In the army, this is taken for granted. Sekhar, Colonel Sekhar, Major Sekhar, Captain Sekhar is an officer. He will give you the right results. If he does not, then we have a problem. In the civilian space, Lina Ashar, the civilian, is saying, Colonel Sekhar, dekhte yaar aadmi kaisa hai, then I will see whether I have to trust him or not. This is not what you have done conducting this workshop, this interactive session. So the element of trust is something which in the civilian space we lack greatly. And in a world where disinformation, misinformation, truth, lies, and sorry for the language, bullshit. Bullshit seems to dominate, as Harry Frankfurt said. So how do we go out of this? The only way you can do is conversation. And where will good conversations happen? When people question you. Sir, you are wrong here. That's the only way development will happen. Contrarianism or questioning is not something esoteric. It is something needed for your own progress. Otherwise, you will be extinct like a dinosaur.
A very interesting point you came up with is the trust deficit. And one of the reasons I feel, and I'm going to ask you this question, is I believe our education system is partly responsible for us growing up as adults with this trust deficit. Could you elaborate on why you think this trust deficit exists amongst civilians?
Firstly, we look at the negative much more. In this world where we are running fast, aage piche, and it's a very strange paradox, Lina. The army man, the army women, the air force man, woman, naval man, woman, they are the last to say there should be war. You go to a civilian, they will say, have war tomorrow morning, blast off Islamabad. It doesn't quite work that way. So what I'm trying to say is, in the armed forces, we say Naam, Namak, Nishan. Naam, your name. Namak is the salt, and the Nishan. So the first loyalty in the system is to your body. If I die, I will save my body. Then comes to your platoon of 36, section of 12, platoon of 36, then a company of 12, then the first unit, the battalion. So people will die for each other for this Naam, Namak, Nishan. And over a period of time, it becomes second habit. Here, the first question is, why should I sacrifice for Lina? And it's a systemic thing which we have embedded in ourselves. The good schools are where teachers say, okay, you go home today, you are not well, I'll cover your 5 classes. I'm just giving a basic example. So the system itself, in our ultra-competitive scholastic space, we as principals don't do it right. Lina Ashar is a fellow principal. I have introduced something new. No, I should not tell her because she will take away 10 teachers of ours. So in this ultra-competitive negative world, we also encourage our students to be competitive without being understanding. It's from the basics. It's really from the basics. So this requires much, much more effort. And this can only be done when people have tenures. You work here for 5 years. Your mistakes will be condoned as long as your intentions are right. 2, the parent is not interested in the student's mistakes. We only want to hear double income, single kid, double income, no kid. And 3, most of us, and I am not questioning somebody, we compromise because we also have a life.
Yeah.
I'm lucky, we also have a life. So all this comes together. This requires perhaps creation of trust is the biggest challenge I have faced in all my institutions.
So, what are some of the things we can do as in the education system at the school level, at a systemic level, to increase this feeling of trust? What are some of the major things we should do?
First and foremost, initially when the parent comes, tell them that we are not going to have nirvana here over the next 24 seconds. Give them a clear picture as what is going to come. Second, a school is a place where the student spends 15 years and he changes almost every other day. She becomes an adult only after she leaves school. So we are not in a position to give a profit or loss account or a balance sheet. Tell the parents that is the reality. We are going to get these students to succeed in life. What this person will do, we are giving him that base. That's the second part. 3, your son, your daughter will make mistakes. Accept it. Do not compete with the others. Easier said than done. 4, complete transparency. Complete means complete transparency. That doesn't mean that they come into the classroom and select teachers. No, not at all. Complete transparency. Bad news never gets better with time. Be clear about it and do not allow your parents to co-run your school. You are the school leader. Can you run the school? And in this context, if you are able to protect your teachers from bellicose parents, 50% of your problems are sorted out. The parent will not challenge you because you are the principal. Inevitably, the challenge goes to the teachers. Identify your weakest teacher in terms of assertiveness. Give her your protective umbrella. Then watch how your teachers will die for.
So interestingly, there's been an increase in investment in education. There's been an increase in number of choices that parents have. I remember when I was a young teacher who came from Australia, the principal was the authority, the know-all, the be-all, the revered, the respected, and it's almost like an economic situation where now supply has opened up, and we see a shift in how parents view principles and the authority and the reverence and all of that. Do you think this is a good thing?
A bit of both. A bit of both. Firstly, principals themselves keeping them on a pedestal. They are. Principals themselves keeping themselves on a pedestal has not been good, although different places require different leadership styles. There have been places where meeting the parent was a challenge because they had come there only to abuse. There are places meeting the parent was the key because they are rather inhibited. So firstly, principles must not be in ivory tower. But I have a bigger challenge. In 10, at best 15 years, the principle will be extinct. I do not see the principle to be in the way. The change will be similar to the editor of a newspaper. Much more chief learning officer, less being a principal. I do not see full-time schools working. 30 to 35% of our students are automatically looking into YouTube and learning sometimes the wrong things. 3, schools with space. The physical education director will be more important than the so-called principal or otherwise because our obesity numbers, our overweight numbers are hitting the roof. We will have students coming in their own vehicles, which could be drones. You should have a place for them to land. They'll come, play and go. 5 days in a week, schools, 2 days, you'll be an Amazon store. Who knows how it will develop? But the format of schools and courtesy people like Dreamtime will change, must change. First point. Second, the principle has to be assertive. My way of looking at leadership is something what Eisenhower said, some of our best generals said. The best leaders I have been part of encouraged questioning. We went into operational rooms despite being a non-operational guy. We were allowed to question everything. And then once the final decision is taken, we follow it as long as it is not illegal. Here, the challenge bigger would be the passive resistance we face. I don't like your face, so I will say yes to you, and then once you are not there, show my face. So one is the principal has to come out of her ivory tower. Two, the principal has to be an instructional leader. The more he or she informally mentors the teachers, supports them, sits with them, it makes a difference. Three, allow the students to run the school day to day. The student must be running the school. They are going for lunch, class to class, all leave it to the school student leaders. The teachers are there to mentor them, intervene when you have to. Allow the teachers to make your mistakes. So the be all end all principle is no longer there, at least from what I understand. Yet the principal has to be a leader for whom the teachers believe he will die for us.
Amazing.
Are we doing it enough? I'm not sure at all. So
Amazing.
my succinct answer is ivory towers do not exist, yet respect what I believe is the guy is fair, the guy is tough, yet the man takes care of us or the lady takes care of us.
I think one of the things I've always encouraged principals to understand is that respect is mutual. You respect a child, the child respects you. I mean, it's a mutual relationship that has to exist, not a one way. The second thing, I believed in when I set up the first Billabongs in 2000, is I wanted to move away culturally from principals being called sir and ma'am. Specifically because what research kind of shows is that when we glorify somebody with a title, we tend to minimize ourselves. And any of these titles that have existed for a long time work differently with the brain. So homework and play work, or workshop and play shop, mean very, very different things to the brain. So I don't call, we don't call our people who design the sessions, we don't call them instructional designers, because that's got a certain connotation for them as well. Their title is Curiosity and Excitement Architects. They said you've got two jobs: arouse curiosity and generate excitement. That's your only job, because learning, as you said, through YouTube or anything else is a given if you do those two things correctly. What's your take on us shifting certain nomenclature in schools to perhaps disrupt the notions and the titles of leadership and the very culture of how we take these?
Tough question. Yes, disruption has to happen, but I am a very strong believer in that the leadership, the principal is the leader, along with what I believe a dynamic leadership team. The buck has to stop with him or her. What happens is it has to be gradual. The two parts which I have learned is initially you are soft, later on you become tough, it doesn't work. If you want to get systems and processes doing, initially itself you have to make those changes, and then people will say, yeah, he was tough, now he seems to have matured, whatever language you can use. So I don't entirely go with you, yet I get from where you are coming. I defined that instructional part. I've also questioned myself. Are we instructors? That means we are only one side. Are we facilitators or interlocutors? Point is valid. There has to be a real bringing down of the exalted status. Yet, a free-flowing culture like the way we have seen in the United States, I'm still ambivalent about.
So I'm not necessarily talking about a free flowing culture. I'm talking about commanding respect rather than demanding respect. I'm just saying that if we challenge some of the nomenclature, we call our teachers cheerleaders. Because the notion of a teacher is one. The minute we say cheerleader, it speaks to the brain very differently. right? So
Yeah.
the cheerleader says, okay, my role here is not to say, tell a parent that your child is talkative. It's to say your child is really social.
Yeah.
Because
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But my challenge is the way our children are now coming to school, whether our parents are taking their share of the responsibility of bringing them up is something which I am personally challenged with. I'll give you an example as to how I look at it. And this was a lesson I learned pretty early. This was in the middle of Sri Lanka. So there were 3 vehicles. We were there. The LTT was there. And any officer, anyone moving, we would have guns, 36 men, 3 vehicles. So we moved into, I was very young, a second lieutenant. We moved into a place. Suddenly all the vehicles stopped. And the senior JCO, the junior commissioned officer, came up and said, "Sir, आप आगे नहीं जा सकते. This is LTT area." I said, "We have to go because we have to get the money." "No, साहब, आप नहीं जा सकते. आप गलत कर रहे." I said, "ये मेरा हुक्म है. मैं जवाबदार हूँ. We have to go." Then he saluted me. "साहब, मैंने आपको बता दिया है. आपने क्या कहा है. Now, please don't go into the first vehicle. Go into the second vehicle because your life is precious. I will leave." So how I look at it is that he said what he has to say. I overruled him. Then he followed it up. I'm not necessarily looking at it as an armed forces example. I'm looking at it as an example where when there are conversations, when there are interactions, when there are free exchanges of ideas, somewhere the buck has to stop. So the name, nomenclature, etc., to a certain extent, keep that in place. But I go along with you when somebody says, I mean, my point is, Lina Ashar is a liar. You will get a gun to shoot me. Lina Ashar has got an optional association with truth. Before you think, the emotional pressure goes away. So I'm with you on that.
amazing. Naman?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so I've had a fascinating conversation with you, Sekhar. I want to thank you very, very much. Some of the I've taken some great learning away from you. Especially I love the one, and I hope our Dreamtime Learning Hub principal is watching. The timetable by students is, I think, the one that I love the most. Letting kids lead the school, where kids, I think, create their own forums, the student councils. I guess they should feel empowered to have a voice, to voice their opinions without fear of kind of repercussions. So I thank you very, very much, Colonel Sekhar, for this conversation, and I look forward to seeing you very soon at a conference.
Thank you very much, Lina. It's been a pleasure and a privilege. This has been completely offbeat, as only you can make it to be. It's been fun talking to you and interacting with you. Happy Diwali to all those who are listening in. Happy Diwali to you and to your family. May God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.